Hello, fellow snows, hoes, ugly blokes, and millennial jokes, and welcome to the Bastards of Gaming Podcast, Episode 1. I'm your host with the most, Xizor, joined by my co-host, the maple syrup to my French toast, the Demi Moore to my Patrick Swayze ghost, SynthR.
I can hear everybody tapping the delete button on this podcast right now.
All right, I just wanted to be stupid up front. This is our new gaming podcast that we're trying to do, the Bastards of Gaming Podcast. So me and SynthR here, we've been friends for a long time, been gaming for a long time. Well, our combined gaming history is about 60 to 65 years. I mean, that's the experience we're coming with here. I mean, I've been playing games for at least 30 years, and you've probably been playing games for at least 30 years.
Yeah, it's about 31.
So our opinions are probably better than yours. We probably know more than you do. And that's why we're here, to tell you the things that you should know, to give you the opinions you should have.
So that's how we're playing it. We're just going to brainwash people.
Yeah, we're here to tell you. Okay, this is the world we live in now, where people tell you what to think. You don't have to. We don't just give you the facts and let you figure it out. No, we tell you what to think. Yeah. So, but for real, yeah. So we've been friends for 15-ish years. We met on this gaming site, the Twisted Metal Alliance, which was a fan site for Twisted Metal back in the day, and so I came on there and started interacting about whenever the online Twisted Metal Black Online came out. So that was what was that 2002-ish?
2001.
I think I joined like right after. So I wasn't on there when Twisted Metal Black came out. So it was when the online, whenever that was. But yeah, so we interacted on there, and then we started playing games more actually together during the 360 generation.
Yeah.
That's where we sort of became friends. That's kind of when, voice chat became a thing during that era, because Twisted Metal Black Online didn't have a voice chat, just had the text chat. And so we became friends during that era, and started playing a lot more games during the 360 generation. And
I would say we were friends on the forum and everything. But for sure talking like solidifies it.
All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to talk about some news things, some news that we think is important and interesting, and then we're going to talk about some games that we're playing, and then for our final segment, we're going to do a topic, and the topic this week is going to be how does your gaming past influence what you play today? So we're going to start off here with the news. The first bit I want to talk about is 4A developers of Metro Exodus and their exodus from Steam, going over to the Epic Game Store, and how that sort of whole controversy went down. If you're not aware, Metro is a game series that's been on multiple platforms, but a lot of people like to play it on Steam. That's where I've played them. I've played 2033 and Last Light. I was actually about to pre-order it when this whole thing went down last week, where they basically pulled the game unless you had already pre-ordered it from Steam, and said that if you're going to buy this game on PC for the next year or so, I think it's 2020 was when the exclusivity goes away. If you want to play it on PC, you're going to have to play it on the Epic Game Store, and that's the only place you can play it. Now, like I said, you if you had pre-ordered up until that point, they're still going to support the game on Steam, and they're still going to honor any patches and future updates, DLC, stuff like that. So this pushed me to go ahead and download the Epic launcher and just check it out, because I'd never downloaded it before. So this is my first experience. I pre-ordered it on there just to see what that would be like. The game is actually $10 cheaper if you were to pre-order it on the Epic Game Store. So I haven't played anything on there yet. I don't know I just kind of briefly looked over the program and saw what was going on, but I haven't really used it yet. I'm going to kind of use Metro as my first experience with the platform. I think games are DRM free on there, although I think you also have to have a constant connection to play games. So I don't think you can play Metro offline, and I don't think I saw something earlier this week too where I don't think you can even have a VPN running while you're playing the game. So they're being kind of like anti-cheat, but also like really restricting you in a way. So it's kind of an odd thing as this Epic Game Store is kind of getting up and running, and they're trying to sort of update it and figure out what gamers want. But what is your thoughts on everything that happened last week?
I'm interested in the story behind this whole thing of why were they on Steam and then suddenly just switched to Epic. Like, I'm sure money's involved, fine, but like what was the hustle there? Because they were definitely marketing it on Steam, going to go full steam ahead. Haha, another pun. And all of a sudden they're going to Epic, and I know that they're going to get more money. They don't get Epic doesn't get as much of a cut, and that's reflected in why it's cheaper, I would assume.
So the main reason for doing this, the main reason that Epic is trying to pull people over to their platform is because developers get a 12% cut versus the 30% that Steam takes. So that's the main reason why all this has happened. But like you said, there's definitely a story to sort of why this happened in the final hour here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure, what would have caused that. Obviously, some people are mad at, 4A for doing this. They're kind of attacking the developers. It was actually not the publisher, because there's Deep Silver, so there's 4A, and the publisher's Deep Silver, but they're owned by, what is it, Coach? It's spelled KOCH is the actual company that owns all these. So they're the ones that sort of made these decisions, I believe. And so there's definitely a business decision that happened sort of late in the game. But
yeah, and I wonder if it was like premeditated. Like maybe they were on Steam for a long time knowing that they were going to pull the trigger on this. Like, what is the story here? I'm sure it'll come out.
Yeah, because I think wasn't it back in was it December? I don't know if you know this, but I think it was back in December when the sort of Epic Game Store became like a thing. Because I remember them talking about it during the Game Awards, where that was when they were showing like this game is exclusive to the Epic Game Store. So that's when I remember. I know the Epic launcher was probably around for a little while, I would imagine. I don't know, because I don't play Fortnite. I don't play. I mean, I think they had was it Unreal? Like the latest version of Unreal, wasn't that on there? And there's other games, so I'm sure that's been around for a while. I don't know if you know more about that.
No, I don't.
Yeah, so I don't think either of us really play any sort of games from Epic, so we don't really know. But I remember that's back in December around the Game Awards is when some of the games that were announced at the Game Awards that night were on the Epic Game Store. So if that's the case, and that's when Epic sort of started putting their stuff out there, Metro was announced and talked about a long time ago. So you could see how this could have happened. Although you do have to wonder why, at the final hour here, why it happened this way.
And what else is interesting is I don't know the history of Valve and Steam. I just vaguely know it, but I wonder if Epic is kind of mimicking the early days, because Valve put out Half-Life and I can't think of the other games they had. They probably had like the Team Fortress mod out of it and Counter-Strike and stuff. And I wonder if they had those games and they wanted people to come to their platform just to capture those people. And then they just built out a storefront from there. So I wonder if Epic's doing the same thing, because now they have Fortnite, which is like an insanely successful game and it probably will never die. And they're just like, okay, well, we got all these people's attention. Let's just start bringing people to our platform and we're going to collect revenue off the top. And developers are going to come here because they're going to get more money.
Yeah, because in the past, I mean, pretty much the only revenue that they've been taking from other people is for licensing the Unreal Engine.
Right.
Yeah, but there's been the only other example I can think of this is the GOG launcher. The I forget what it's called. There's a Galaxy. Uh, when I bought Witcher 3, you had to download that platform, and
Mm-hmm.
they have their own store, and that's owned by CD Project Red, I believe, is the people that own GOG, Good Old Games or whatever it is, and it's the same thing where that's the only reason I load that up. I've never seen GOG, even though their sort of claim to fame was that all their games are they have like a lot of old PC games and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
but it's all DRM free stuff. But I've never really seen them make a huge push in on Steam or anything like that. So this is the first time that another company has like actually tried to go at Steam, because a lot of these companies like EA and Ubisoft, they have their own launcher where you play their games, and EA has their own little storefront and all that. But most of them haven't really tried to, take away from Steam. I mean, some of them have pulled their games from Steam, like where like I'm pretty sure you can't play like Battlefield on Steam. You know what I mean? You have to just go to the Origin
Mm-hmm.
launcher for that. But this is the first time where someone's like, no, we're actually going to try to take market share and mind share away from Valve and Steam, and because I think a lot of people, no one really has a problem with Valve and Steam as a company. I mean, there's been lots of issues over the years, like different little things, but overall, everyone's kind of settled into this is the major platform for games. Everyone has their games library on there and stuff like that. So it's the first time that someone has actually gone after that market share, and like I said, I think it's for the most part, it doesn't seem like it's going to be beneficial to gamers, because the Epic storefront so far doesn't have any kind of features or any all the bells and whistles and things that you would want from Steam. So it's really the developers that are probably going to push this move, because like I said, if you want to play Metro, you have to go there now. So they're not really winning any hearts and minds with gamers. There are a lot of people that are actually upset about this, and because some people just want to play their game on Steam. That's where they have their friends list. That's where they have their games libraries. Like I said, with me, I already have 2033 and Last Light on Steam. I was wanting to play Exodus on Steam. Yeah, so that's the first time we've seen this sort of thing. So, but I understand why developers definitely want to take more of, have people, not have their hands in their pockets. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, it should be interesting to see where it goes.
So the next topic is a thing that actually came up yesterday, which is this was sort of a leaked thing that came out with where Microsoft is going to supposedly going to have this talk at GDC this year, which is the Game Developers Conference, about putting Xbox Live on other platforms. They said Nintendo Switch, iOS, and Android. Now, everyone was running with the headline initially of like, "Oh my God, Live's going to be on everything. You're going to be able to play all your games, all your Xbox games on everything." And then it came out a little bit further in the day what that actually meant, because like I said, this was sort of a leaked thing. It was like a document or something. I don't remember now, but so once we had context for what actually happened, Microsoft was like, "Oh, slow your roll there. We're not actually putting live per se. It was more about sort of these foundational aspects of games that have to work on other platforms. Like, for instance, Microsoft owns Minecraft, and Minecraft is on other platforms other than Xbox. I think you can get Xbox achievements on your Nintendo Switch playing Minecraft on there. So it's more about these backdoor things that need to happen for games and stuff to work. More so than like I'm playing Halo on the Switch. That's not really. I mean, they could lead to that, but that's not really sort of the initial conversation they were wanting to have around this. It was just more about how do we make these games that are multi-platform or potentially multi-platform that are owned by a specific company. How do we make them work on other platforms? So what did you think about this story yesterday?
Well, I totally bought into the platform agnostic thing because that's exactly what the headlines and everything were saying. And I was like at first I was like, holy shit, like this probably is not real. It seems a bit too much, but I know I said to you like maybe it's just streaming games to your phone or to your device, similar to what was it, PlayStation Now or whatever it was.
Yeah, there's been a few streaming services. That's the other thing that's confusing about this is that like the next gen consoles are coming up. No one really knows what the next frontier of gaming is going to be. Like everyone's talking about everything's going to be streaming. You've seen Microsoft making all these power moves with the Xbox brand over the last 5 years to make up for their poor initial showing. So in a way, you could totally see how everyone bought into this. Like, oh, of course Microsoft would do this because they've been doing similar things.
Mm-hmm. They definitely been innovating, and like with Game Pass, like Game Pass to me is like the smartest move. Like
Yeah.
Netflix is doing it. Why not do it with games?
So I initially thought that like, okay, where they would probably go with this is that like if you have a live account and you bought into Game Pass, you would just sign in with that stuff on whatever platform and download whatever game it is you want to play, and then just play it on whatever platform. I mean, that seems like what they've in the direction they've been going in with the fact that you can play Xbox games on PC and Xbox. So it seems like a natural progression to take that further.
Yeah, maybe like I don't think we're there, but maybe one day because I'm sure there's licensing and all this legal stuff that has to take place, right? So, hmm.
Yeah, it's a very because everyone wants cross-platform play. Like that's really what everyone's talking about. I made a video last night of talking about cross-platform play and where that needs to go. But it seems like that's what everyone wants. This is why everyone was ready to pounce on this topic. I think is like everyone's like, oh, thank God, finally. Like if I could buy, because I'm not a Nintendo fan, and I did buy the Switch, but that's the first Nintendo device or console I've owned since basically the Nintendo 64. But I would have maybe been more inclined to pick up some Nintendo titles if I could have just bought a service through Nintendo. You know what I mean? Like if I could play Nintendo games or whatever on my Xbox, I would much rather do that than buying a system and all this stuff. Even though the Switch is cool, I like it. But so there's people out there like, maybe people that didn't maybe people that sat out the Xbox this generation, maybe they would have been like, well, I don't want to buy the console, but if I could buy a live account in Game Pass and play it on my PlayStation, like why wouldn't I want to do that? Do you think this is gonna lead into more platform agnostic gaming? Is this
No,
gonna be?
I think we're still a ways away. I don't think it's going to lead to much of anything other than people checking to see if their buddies are online and sending
Yeah, I mean,
messages.
yeah, because you still. So this is the other weird thing is like if you think about that though, but Microsoft is getting ready to try to sell us a new Xbox, and there's the rumors going around that they're going to have a. I think they're even launching a new version of the Xbox One this year. That's just a diskless device. It's going to be all digital. So I think they're already playing around with this idea that there could be a smaller device, a smaller box. So on the one hand, you have this idea that maybe in the future an Xbox is just a tiny little thing like a Roku or something that you would buy. And so you could see the next logical step from there would just be like, well, what if you didn't even need to have the device itself? You just bought like I said, like Netflix. You would just buy the Xbox Live platform and you would play that on anything. So I could definitely see that happening. I don't think all these companies are willing to give up their mind share and marketplace of, you need our box. But in a way, it's kind of, even if you look back at the Xbox One launch, like they were trying to do the whole, this will be your, one stop shop. They wanted you to go all digital even back then. So who knows?
Yeah, and they only really did that to combat the trade-in market.
Yeah, which they're slowly squeezing out GameStop in the
Hmm.
secondhand market from games. So that's even though they kind of jumped the gun on the whole used games and physical media market. I think it's the way it's panned out now. I think most people just buy things digital. So they were even ahead of their time back then. People didn't want to hear that at the time. Everyone's already playing digital games on PC, on Steam, and whatever else. All right, so up next we're going to talk about the games we've been playing. I'll let you go ahead and start whatever game you want to talk about first.
So the other day I beat Mass Effect 2. Uh, that game is still great, but it's definitely showing its age.
Oh, so you actually played through the whole thing?
Yeah, I played through the whole thing because I'm going to play
How long
3
did it?
soon. It's
How long
36
did it take?
hours.
36 hours.
Yeah,
Wow.
and I saved everybody. So I did all the loyalty missions. I just saved all the crew. So I got all the like suicide mission trophy stuff, and yeah, it was fun, but it's janky. BioWare's engine just doesn't age well. Like I can't wait to see what the Andromeda engine looks like in 10 years from now, but like when you go back even for like Knights of the Old Republic or Jade Empire or whatever, like it's just
Oh,
nothing's aged well at
those
all.
games do not hold up at
No,
all.
no. And they're very basic and scaled down. Like, you could see where Mass Effect came from, but like they like to go back and play them, it is so boring because
Yeah,
like
well, I mean, at the time, I mean, Mass
oh
Effect. I
yeah.
mean, most people consider that like the best one series. Even though I like Mass Effect One's sort of overall self-contained story, Mass Effect Two is definitely where it's at. I still have fond memories of that game, but I think it's like most other things. Would you say that that it sort of holds up to your memories of it, or
I
what?
didn't remember half of it, to be honest. When I was playing it, I was like, I remember playing this, but I don't remember this. I know the first time I played it when it first came out, near the end of the game, everybody died. So I know that in order to keep them alive, you have to do their loyalty missions. So I know I didn't do the loyalty missions. So half of the game, I was doing stuff I never saw the first time through this time
No, so
around.
you didn't do all that stuff the first
No,
time?
I only did loyalty missions for like
Oh
three or four
wow.
characters that I actually liked, like Garrus and Thane.
Yeah,
And
because
everyone
see,
else,
I've
like, go to hell. They can all die. I don't care. And I didn't know it played into the fact that like the ending of it, you know what I mean? I didn't think it mattered that like your ship was going to get chewed to pieces if you didn't have like the shields and stuff.
Yeah, so that's weird because I've actually played that game multiple times, at least three times back in the day when it first came out. I have my what I call my canon save, which was like my initial playthrough of a game. Whatever happens, happens, and then I went back and played. What was it? Renegade. What's the two opposing
Paragon or
morality thing?
Renegade.
Yeah, so I did, and then I do a straight Paragon and a straight Renegade run. So I've played that game at least three times. So I did everything. Sometimes like the first time, yeah, I had a few people die. I think I had like two people die in the ending there. The second time and third time I went through, I knew how to save everyone. Um, but so what? What did you think about it overall? Does it hold up at all? Is it good?
Yeah, it's still fun. The actual like gunplay and everything is kind of lame. It's just like go behind cover, shoot, fire off your biotics. It wasn't.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like I wasn't in any jeopardy unless somebody was like charging at me and they had a lot of health. But like I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what Mass Effect 3 is like again. Um,
yeah, because that was the most because that the ending of that's terrible. Um, but yeah, I love Mass Effect. I played Andromeda, and even though it was a bad game overall, I still miss that. I just love that universe. That was a great universe.
yeah, yeah. It's very fleshed out. It has a lot of character, a lot of like it just feels alive. Like you could live in it. You know what I mean? Like there's just a lot there. And when I played through this time, I was interested in the Reapers and the Geth and those sorts of things because it's weird to think that there's these like machine races that can make decisions and do stuff, and like the Geth in the first game are bad, but then you find out there's two different types of Geth, like they split just like regular people would. You know what I mean? That's a spoiler, but Like it's just I find that stuff interesting, and it's not super fleshed out in the game or anything, but that's stuff I would like to read about in like an expanded universe. You know what I mean? It's kind of like Star Wars. Like
Yeah, well,
you
do
see
you ever go
this.
through the do you ever go through the what is it, the codex stuff?
Yeah,
What's it called in there?
yeah, it's the Codex. So I read through a whole bunch of stuff, and it's detailed enough, but I just want to know more. It's just an interesting universe.
Yeah, I read one Mass Effect book actually back in the day. It was the one that takes place actually before Mass Effect 1. I can't remember what it's called, but that was my only experience of consuming the lore outside of the games. But there's a lot in the games.
Hmm. Anyway,
Um, so yeah, so Mass Effect. That's interesting that you would go back and play something like that. What made you want to play that over something else that's happening right now?
oh, I go back and I play retro stuff all the time, stuff that I have fond memories of, and just start it up and check it out. Like that's what we're going to kind of talk about today, and like nostalgia and stuff. So yeah, it's basically
Yeah.
that.
So here's the other question to ask. I usually like to ask Mass Effect players is, so did you create your own character, like a custom character?
Yeah, as
Yeah.
well
So
as I
I'm
could.
weird. I'm weird in that I just play like the generic shepherd. Like that's my shepherd. Like a lot of people make a custom character when they play through that. Like they customize the face and all that
Yeah,
stuff. I just play. To me, Commander Shepard is the one on the marketing material. Like
right.
that's Shepard to me. So I don't know. I always like to see if there's other weirdos like me that just played like the default Shepard.
I'm sure people do. I love customizing everything, so I always screw around with stuff. I change the nose, I change the ears, like stuff you never look at.
Yeah. Well, I usually do that stuff, but for whatever reason, like when I started Mass Effect, I'm like, I guess because there was so much marketing material with just him in there, I'm like, well, that's Shepard. Like, I don't know. So
Sure.
I just ran with that through the whole thing. All right, so stuff I've been playing. Well, I've been playing the Resident Evil 2 remake, which is which is kind of crazy. If you know me, I don't like Resident Evil. I've never been a fan. I did like the original Resident Evil back in the day because that was kind of mind blowing when you played that on the PlayStation 1. I remember borrowing Resident Evil 2 from a friend in high school, and I played through like maybe half of it, and I was like, whatever. So I didn't even really remember that game. I don't have a fondness for it. I don't have a nostalgia for it. I just the only reason why I picked it up is because there was a demo for it. Demos aren't really a thing anymore like they used to be. But I was just bored one night after I got done playing Red Dead. I just kind of wanted to, you know, try a bunch of different things. I'm like, well, I saw the Resident Evil demos out. I'll download that, and I played it. And I didn't really think much of it until like a couple days later, and I'm like, you know what, that was kind of fun. Like, kind of want to play that. So I went and red boxed it for a few nights, and I started playing. It's actually really good. Um, I can't really speak to all of the differences of between this and the original because, like I said, I'm not that familiar with it.
Yeah.
But from what I gather online, people are really happy with this, even though, a few things obviously had to be changed. But overall, I'm seeing nothing but positive reception to this. And so far, like I said, even as someone who's not a fan, I'm actually really enjoying it. It has a good, so it's basically taking all the best elements of all the Resident Evil games, like, sort of picking up the sort of vibe that they went with Resident Evil 4 as far as more of a third person action game. And, it doesn't have the sort of fixed camera angles and the tank controls of the old games, which is what, eventually turned me off to the series even back then. But, yeah, it feels really good. I mean, you can move and shoot now, although the more you move around, the less accurate you are when you're aiming and stuff,
Mm.
which is kind of a cool way to sort of update that. So they give you the option to move and shoot, but they sort of make it where you're still going to want to kind of stand still for the most part. It's not like you're just going to be shooting all over the place if you're moving, but it definitely makes you a little less accurate. Um, but I mean, it looks great. It sounds great. It feels great. The shooting is a little bit wonky. My only real problem with the game is like there's a sort of inconsistency to shooting the enemies and how much damage they take and bullets and stuff. Like even though it's a zombie game, like you try to shoot them in the head, and it's like some enemies sometimes take like three, four, five, six bullets, and other enemies you can take down like two shots. And there's it doesn't really make much sense. Like I can never tell like why I had to shoot this guy the same enemy type, multiple times versus just a couple times.
Maybe
They
there's like
always get back up.
randomized health stuff.
Yeah,
To,
it's weird. Like I can't make sense of it. I haven't actually gone online to see if people have like broken it down, but I feel like if I'm shooting two zombies in the head, like why did one take 5 bullets and the other one took two to go down? It doesn't really make much sense.
hmm.
Um, but yeah, overall it's fun. It's got a nice map system where when you're looking at when you pull up the map, you can see all the places you've been, all the rooms that you haven't been to, and then it shows any items that are in that room, and then it'll actually make it blue, make the color of the room blue on the map once you've actually picked up everything. So you can go in and see like, oh, there's some bullets in this room, there's a health pickup. So you can go back. It makes it really easy to sort of navigate because you're going to be doing a lot of backtracking and stuff
Hmm.
like that. It's a pretty. I haven't finished it yet. I'm probably going to try to finish it up tonight, at least playing the initial playthrough with Leon. But yeah, I'm actually enjoying it. It's kind of weird because, like I said, I'm not a fan of the series, but it's a really cool take on Resident Evil. I enjoyed Resident Evil 7, kind of a completely different experience, but yeah, this is the first Resident Evil game, sort of old game that I played and actually liked. Um, Other than that, I red boxed Kingdom Hearts yesterday, and I I briefly started that. It's one of those things like I used to be a fan of. So this is kind of this shows you how insane the Kingdom Hearts series is. Like I remember playing the original one. I was actually excited for it when it came out because back then I was a huge SquareSoft. I don't remember if they were Square Enix then, but a SquareSoft fan. So I bought anything that they put out, and so I remember playing the original Kingdom Hearts and liking it. I kind of was over it even by the time two came out, and so I had zero interest in three. But it was one of those things like I just kind of wanted to see it for myself, like I just kind of
Hmm.
wanted to try it out and see what it was. So I barely got started on that. I can't really speak too much to it other than it's what you think it is. It's a weird fucking SquareSoft Japanese RPG, but I don't know. It was kind of neat. It was kind of fun just to dick around with it. I highly doubt I'm gonna actually play through the whole thing, but I just kind of want to dabble in it just to see it. It looks pretty. It was kind of cool what the initial start of the game and playing through the first little bit, but I don't know. I'm gonna play it a little bit more. It's neat. But yeah, it's it's Kingdom Hearts, so it's fucking stupid. It's fucking Disney and Square, the most awkward combination you could ever imagine. But it is what it is. I don't know. Like I said, I don't have too much of an opinion on it yet, but it's kind of neat. And the only other game I think I've really dicked around with this past week is Below. Have you played that at all?
Yeah, I did. I did try it out for a bit. I didn't really like it. It didn't grab me.
Yeah, I was really digging it for like 2 or 3 hours there, but I don't. It's kind of a hard game to explain because it's like a roguelike, but and it has these like sort of Dark Soulsy elements to it and stuff like that. And it's like every time you die, you come back. You basically start over. Like you pull up in a ship on the shore, but you find little shortcuts to sort of make your way back to where you were before. But there's all these sort of survival elements too, where you pick up random objects and you need water and you need food. The combat is very basic. It's like a panned out overhead sort of game. So I should say this is a game that's on Microsoft or the Xbox store on Game Pass. So you can play it for free. So they've been showing it at the Microsoft E3 press events for like years now. Everyone's like, when is this game coming out? And so it finally came out, and it's pretty neat. I mean, I was kind of digging it, but I don't. It's one of those things where the map is it all kind of looks the same, and so at a certain point, I got to a point where like I was making steady progress, and it was all cool and everything, and then I got to a point where like I hit a dead end, and I'm like, all right, now I have to backtrack. And I'm going through all these maps, and they all kind of look similar. All these different little areas look the same, and I was like, I don't know, there's some random path somewhere that I missed or something, and I'm like, so, and then I just kind of shut it off. The game crashed on me a couple times, which is annoying. But it's a neat little game. I mean, I like the style of it. The music is actually really good in it. I thought it was really atmospheric and cool music. It has a neat intro too. Even though it's like a weird thing where I thought the game was like broken because it does. It's like if you played it, didn't you think the intro was insanely long? Like where it's like it's above you and you're seeing like the
Yes.
clouds and it's like slowly panning in. I'm like,
Yeah, I
what the
was
fuck is supposed to happen here?
I was pushing the button and I was like, what is happening? I don't see my character. I don't see a boat. I don't know what's happening right now. Like I don't know if I'm a bird. I didn't understand what was happening. And then like 5 minutes later you're like landing on a beach and I'm like, what was that? Like why was it that long? There was no credits,
it
there was
was
nothing.
yeah, it was way too fucking long. Way too fucking long. So that was the first thing. I'm sitting there like mashing buttons like, am I supposed to be doing something right now? Like what is happening?
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, that's the only other game I played. I don't know if I can totally recommend it. I do think it's super neat. I'm gonna go back and try to play it maybe one more time and see what I feel about it. I haven't really played a smaller sort of indie game like this in a while. After 3 months of Red Dead, I was ready to just sort of try a bunch of different weird random things. So I started that. That's below, um, like I said, on the Microsoft Store. Pretty neat little game, worth checking out, especially if you have Game Pass. You can just play it for free. All right, well, we'll just move into our final segment here, the topic of the week. So the topic this week is how does your gaming past influence what you play today? And now SynthR is the one that sort of brought this topic up. So I'll let you go ahead and start and sort of establish what it is, how you sort of want this conversation to go, what you meant by this.
Everybody kind of has their own unique fingerprint when it comes to gaming, like when they started, who they played with, where they got their games from, what games they would have played, what systems they would have had. And it's just an interesting topic. I think you could just strike this up with anybody that's a gamer, and you can kind of see and map out like where it went and what they play today and why they play the games they play. And
So yeah,
go ahead.
the interesting thing about this to me is that like when you initially brought this up to me, I was thinking my sort of initial train of thought was that like I don't really know that my gaming past actually has any influence over what I play today at all. I mean, there's a couple threads that I could draw, but for the most part, I think about. I mean, gaming has changed for one. Even though there's a lot of genres that are still the same as they were even back on the NES and Genesis and stuff like that. But I remember back then I was playing like car combat games or JRPGs. I was really into real time strategy games and stuff like that. But I don't really play any of that stuff anymore. There's definitely not any car combat games. I haven't played a RTS in years other than maybe Halo Wars just because it was Halo. So I don't really. There's not too much that influences my what I play today.
But a lot of the ones that you just said, like a lot of those genres have died out. Like car combat was 90s. That was the heyday. And then you said RTSs, like those have fizzled out over time. And now it's more like the 4X games that I don't really care for because they take forever. But yeah, like
Yeah,
those
and
games don't
and
really exist as much
and
anymore.
real time strategy kind of morphed into like MOBAs in a way.
Right.
In a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, for sure. So like HOTS, like I play a lot of Heroes of the Storm or used to, and that's very RTS, but it has like a mix of like action RPG and RTS put together. So, but yeah, most MOBAs are basically that. So it is, that's another topic, like how things have morphed and evolved into something else, probably because people are fed up or bored of that genre. So I'm sure Battle Royale will have its day where nobody plays it anymore. But basically, just to go back to the topic, so to start with me, like I've been playing games since I was 4 years old, and my parents would rent a lot of games for me. I never really owned many games until I had a Sega Genesis. I owned a couple. But they mainly would let me go to the local store. For me, it was Video 99 and just rent whatever game I wanted for 3 days, and I'd play it and then send it back. It was usually on like a Friday, and I had it for the weekend. And it's not like I would play it for 8 hours straight or anything either. I'd be outside with friends and whatnot, and maybe only play like 4 or 5 hours of it before sending it back to the store. But like I got a taste for like all the genres, all types of games, hard, easy, you name it. And I still game that way today, where I play a game to completion and then I move on to the next one. Like I have a lineup of like where I'm going to be going next. What game am I looking forward to? Is there a lull? If there's a lull, then what game am I going to play during that? And that's usually where I go back and I'll play like Mass Effect, or I'll go play like the Onimusha games or something like that, where there's like nothing much going on. Because I'd rather play something I've played before that I liked than just continue searching for something and it's not very good, or wasting my money and not wanting it and you can't really take it back. So like for me growing up, because of that, I got to play a lot of RPGs, and I was like 9 or 10 years old, and I was playing games like Shining Force, which is like a tactical RPG where you had different units that had different attack ranges, and they move certain amount of squares, and it's very tactical. And I'm 9 and 10 years old, and I'm surprised I played those games. I don't remember beating them, but I know I got pretty far in them. But like as I grew up, I really loved the progression of role-playing games. I loved leveling up, getting new equipment, getting to that next town, like budgeting my money and giving like my best guys the best weapons and like helmets and armor and everything else, and
Yeah, well, it's funny.
strategizing.
It's funny because like almost every game now has like RPG elements.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
like almost any like a first person shooter or whatever. They have these progression systems.
Yeah,
So
so it's
my
more it's more like meta type stuff,
yeah
like over
yeah
top.
yeah. So my first experience with like role playing stuff, which was like was Final Fantasy VII. That was my first time ever playing anything like that. So
Hmm.
my gaming past, I mean, like I said, I started playing games when I was about 7 or 8. I don't remember. My dad got me a NES for Christmas one year. I didn't even ask for it. He just bought it because it was like the new cool thing, and he thought me and my little brother would like it. I never really cared about video games or knew anything about them up until that point, and that's when I got Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt and all that. But I never really, like I said, it wasn't until the PlayStation One that I really took games more serious. I just saw video games as just another toy to play with. I wasn't really super invested in them. I don't think I ever beat too many games growing up. I didn't really understand games that much. I don't know. Looking back, I was a filthy casual back then. Like I would play a game and I would get stuck, or I wouldn't understand something. And I'd be like, fuck this, and I would stop playing it, or I would just play something over and over until I died, and I'd be like, all right, I'm bored with this now. So I didn't really take games that serious when I was younger. So there, I don't have this nostalgia and this love for the retro consoles like the NES, Super Nintendo, and Genesis and stuff like that. Like a lot of other people do. I mean, I definitely played a bunch of games like you. I used to rent games. Like I would go buy a game here and there just because it would be like I'd be at Toys R Us and I'm like, I don't know, I could buy some GI Joes, or I could buy this, or I could buy that, and I don't know. I feel like just buying a new game, so I'll just buy like Super Mario Brothers 3 or whatever, and then I would rent stuff too and just tool around with different games. But I didn't really care about them all that much. Like I said, it wasn't until the PlayStation One, and that's where you can start sort of drawing lines between my taste then and now. But like I was saying earlier, I don't really. There's not too much that really influences my current taste in games. The only parallel I would draw is that like I said, when I played Final Fantasy VII, that's the game that sort of solidified gaming to me as like a valid, interesting art form. Like something I was going to really be investing a lot more of my time into because I didn't know games could be that big and expansive. How all these characters, all this story, a world that you could explore and stuff like that. And the parallel that I draw is like kind of now where I mostly enjoy like open world games for the most part. I want to explore a space. I want to go out on an adventure and tell my own stories and have my own like world to explore. And so that's the only thing that I draw parallels to, because like JRPGs, even though I was saying earlier I just went and picked up Kingdom Hearts, I can't really stand JRPGs anymore. Like I just can't play them. I tried to play Final Fantasy 15, and I've been chasing that initial high of playing those JRPGs from the 90s, like Xenogears and Final Fantasy, for years. I eventually just got bored with that genre, as sort of more Western games became way more interesting and fleshed out than Japanese games. So that's really the only thing I can think of. I've always played racing games. I've always enjoyed racing games. I kind of go like almost skip generations with racing games sometimes. Like I was really into racing games on the PlayStation 1, not as much on PlayStation 2, 3, in the sort of the original Xbox era. And the 360, I played a shit ton of racing games, like a shit ton of them. And now I'm kind of bored with them again. But I've always played racing games. So what other kind of stuff influenced you and what you play today?
Well, you kind of touched on it there when you said about exploration and adventure. Like for me, that's why I play RPGs. Like secondary is the progression and that kind of like the loot system and all that stuff. Like there's a bit of like gambling in there. You know what I mean? Like there's like, oh my god, am I gonna get loot? Am I gonna get money? Like what's around the corner? What's in this cave? What am I gonna find in that chest? You know, like it's a bit addictive that way. But definitely it's like the exploration. Like when I was a kid, I used to go outside and spend hours outside with my friends, and we'd just go in the forest. We'd build things, go tobogganing in the winter, just go explore and be creative and be um, just come up with stuff, you know, and just be kids. And the RPGs, especially ones with overworlds where you get to walk around and like discover hidden things in like a cave, or like you walk into like a forest piece and there's question marks over it because there's something there, and you go check it out and there's a hard boss in there that's going to whoop your ass, you know, like that stuff. I love that stuff, just exploring and seeing what you could see. And
Yeah, I think if I would have been introduced to more role playing games like earlier on, like in the a lot of people love Final Fantasy 6. They say that's the best Final Fantasy game, and even some of the early computer role playing games. Like I don't know any off the top of my head, but a lot of the computer role playing games that people used to play back in the day. I think if I would have been introduced to those, because I didn't really, even amongst my friends growing up, I mean, we would dick around with games here and there, but none of my friends were really gamers. Like they weren't really serious about it. So I didn't have people really shepherding me into sort of different game experiences. I would just pick up things at random, and most of the time I didn't like them. But I think if I would have found these role playing games where I had a little bit more agency, I could explore and experience like the things that you're talking about, which is, like I said, that's why I enjoy things like Red Dead. I just want to go off and explore a world and
mhm.
tell my own stories, have my own adventures. I think if I would have been introduced to that stuff at a younger age, I probably would have played those games and enjoyed those kinds of experiences a little bit more earlier on. But like I said, it wasn't really until Final Fantasy VII where I'm like, oh, a video game can be like this. Like this is possible. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, now I'm paying attention. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, Final Fantasy VII definitely is what hit it off for RPGs. I think that was like the Renaissance time, and when Square really hit their stride. Um, like it's like for me, Final Fantasy VII, I played that game in my lifetime about 4 times from beginning to end, and like every time I do different stuff, I do some of the same stuff I did before, but I always try to see things I didn't see. But the game is like jam packed with just like hidden things and stuff that you can do, and that's what I like about an RPG is when they take the time to flesh out the character, tell a good story. I can't say Final Fantasy VII is a great story. I can't say most of the JRPGs are great stories because they don't make bloody sense half the time, but you're still invested in it. You're still like, what is going on? Who's Sephiroth? What the hell is this?
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like,
But at the time, everything in that game just seemed so iconic and crazy. And
yeah,
like I said, that was just my first experience. So I'm like everything about that. Even though I haven't played that game since I played it back then, I actually bought it on the PlayStation 4 a few years ago, and I've never even played it because it's just that nostalgia thing, where you're like, I want to play this, and you start playing it. At least for me, because you're sitting here talking about you played these retro games, like you played Mass Effect 2, and it's like I'm the
It's not
type,
even
man.
retro.
Yeah, well, I mean, technically, yeah, it's not, but you're talking about playing like older games. I'm just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
old game is old. I don't even want to, unless it came out in the current year. I don't even want to play it. Almost. That's kind of how I am. So I don't have like I'll play like a remake. Like I'm playing the Resident Evil remake, but I couldn't imagine trying to play Resident Evil 2. So I don't have this like fondness for old things really. So I don't have this uh parallel. Like I don't have too many parallels and threads that I can trace back to all that stuff. Because like I said, I feel like I'm always on the bleeding edge. I want to see like the next newest, biggest, craziest thing. I want to see where games are going. And like I said, I didn't really play the games I played back then. And like you said, that some of those are just dead genres or game types now.
Right.
But yeah, I don't. There's not too much other than like I said, the action adventure elements of role playing games, exploration and
Okay.
story
Okay.
and stuff like that.
I'm gonna call your bluff here. So I'm gonna give you two examples. First, I'm gonna give you a shittier example. I even though they've redone Twisted Metal and it was a huge fuck up and we're all disappointed, would you not be interested if they brought out yet another one and maybe Dave Jaffe was not leading it?
Oh yeah, well for sure. But I mean that's kind of a different thing where like uh, we have such a deep, deep, deep history with car combat.
Okay.
Like that was
So
my favorite. That was one of my favorite genres. I would still play it. No one's making those
yeah.
though.
So it'd be the same for Vigilante 8 because I know you love Vigilante 8 too.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. All those games are great. I would be on board for any car combat game. So now let's say like you have to have nostalgia for Halo.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I'll go back and play Halo. If you ask me right now, let's go play Halo 1. I'll be like, all right, let's do it.
Well, we should. We should go back and play the Master Chief collection.
Yeah,
All of them.
I'll do that. That's one of the things. But like, I have a Halo tattoo. That's how deep Halo goes with me. Like, I'm serious about Halo. So that's a different thing. But yeah, but shooters have kind of been around since like I said, I remember playing the original Doom and Duke
Yeah.
Nukem
Yeah, so did
and
I.
all that stuff. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, there are things. Yeah, I mean, you're calling my bluff a little bit. But you're kind of bringing up the prime examples. But if you're like, let's go play Command and Conquer, I'd be like, no, why,
Come on,
no.
Command and Conquer had amazing music. It
I mean,
did. I loved it.
I did love it back in the day though. I played the shit out of Command and Conquer on the PlayStation 1. Holy fuck! And like Dune on the PC.
Yeah, Dune 2000.
Yeah, I used to go. My best friend, I used to go to his house all the time, and I would sleep over there, and I didn't play it much myself, but I would watch him play that game for hours, for hours.
And he loved it because he didn't want to play.
But yeah, he's the one that sort of introduced me to different things, like just weird games. Like there was a PC game back in the day, Operation Flashpoint. Have you ever heard of that or played
Yeah,
it?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it was like a super ultra realistic for the time anyway shooter. So that I was introduced to different things that way. But that's what I was saying earlier on. Like I didn't have until I met my best friend in the sixth grade, and he had an older brother, and they played a lot of video games. But until then, I didn't have friends that are like, oh man, check out this game. I mean, all my friends had like a Super NES or whatever in high school, and we would trade like games. We would swap games at school sometimes. Like, oh, I got NBA Jam. Trade me your Street Fighter or something, and we would swap games for a little while. But even stuff like that, like I used to play more fighting games, like on the PlayStation 1, but I can't stand fighting games. Like I don't know why people are. I mean, I understand like why people are into them, but I can't believe there's still like a genre. Like I feel like that's something that maybe would have died out because like I used to like that stuff, but the last fighting game I played was that what was that the DC one, the DC what's it
Injustice.
called? Yeah, Injustice 2. I played that just to see, and that was interesting. But yeah, that's another game that I played more on back then that I would never buy a fighting game in this day and age. Well, what do you feel about fighting games?
I've never liked them. I understand the appeal. Like I understand the competitive aspect of it. I just don't like the repetitiveness of it. You know what I mean? Like it's over and done with pretty quick. Like the matches are fast, and you just pick a new character, and you have to learn all these button combos, and it's a lot of muscle memory and stuff. That's not for me. Like there's no story there. So I get the competitiveness of it because I'm a huge wrestling fan. So I understand like, oh, who's gonna win out of these two people playing? But it's not. It's too one dimensional for me. So I've never liked it.
So other than the sort of role playing action adventure games, is there any other genres or games or stuff that from your childhood or growing up that sort of influence what you play now?
Uh, for sure, racing games. So like I didn't really start playing a lot of racing games till the PS1. I did play some on Sega and like the SNES and stuff, but those were like really basic, right? It's just flat and like you're just driving straight and you're doing a couple turns here and there. But when the PS1 came out, that's when you had like the 3D aspect of it where it carried more weight and it felt
Yeah, I
more
mean
like you're
that's
driving.
definitely
It
yeah, that's
wasn't arcadey like Daytona USA, where
yeah,
you're just
yeah.
driving
Cruising
straight.
USA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where you're just hitting the walls and you're still going straight. Like you're riding the rails. It's more of it's arcadey, but there's a simulation aspect to it. So it wasn't until the PS1, and then that's when I got into like Twisted Metal and stuff too, because I think it was the same year when I actually rented a PS1, and the first games that I rented were Twisted Metal and Ridge Racer Revolution. And I think when I rented it again, I got Twisted Metal as well and Wipeout. So I got racing games each time, and I've always loved futuristic racing games for sure. So like Wipeout, Roll Cage. There's a couple out now that kind of riff off that. It's not the same. It does play
Yeah,
on nostalgia,
I love
but
Wipeout. I definitely love that on the PlayStation 1. I've been playing Wipeout games for a long time.
yeah,
It kind of falls in the category of car combat almost in a way. It's like the racing combat. No one
yeah,
really makes those
yeah,
anymore. I love that genre. I wish someone would make something like that. Like I remember Full Auto,
yeah.
which is not a great game on when 360 launched, and
Blur, Blur,
yeah, Blur was the last one that I remember that was kind of riffing on that.
Blur was amazing. Like I know it's Mario Kart, but like it was amazing. I love that game. I like Mario Kart, but Blur was like an adult version of Mario Kart.
Yeah, I hate that the only way people do the sort of combat racing thing is like a kart racer now. Like they're bringing back that Crash team racing.
Yeah, and Sonic. They're doing
Um,
like another Team Sonic thing.
yeah, I'm like, I kind of like that genre or that style of game, but no, but everyone just does the kart racer carbon copy of Mario Kart bullshit.
But it's like that for a lot of genres, right? Like look, battle royales raging on right now. There was like tower defense for years, a whole bunch of Minecraft ripoffs, like building things. Like people just get stuck in these ideas, like MOBAs. MOBAs were just like blowing up until battle royale came out, and everyone's like, "Screw MOBAs, this is over." And now we're going to battle
Yeah,
royale. Like Blizzard's going to announce a battle royale soon. Like I know they're with Activision and they have Call of Duty and they have their whatever it's blackout mode or whatever the hell it is. But I guarantee you Blizzard's gonna make something like that because they're always making the trendy game type, and
yeah,
which is a shame. It's a shame. And they're
you know
making a
what?
mobile Diablo and like they're just I don't know.
Yeah, and MMOs were all the rage before.
Yeah,
Now that's
early
almost a
two
dead genre.
thousands.
Hmm.
Yeah. So when WoW came out, that's when it really hit off. Like there was already EverQuest and like Asheron's Call, all these other like subscription based MMOs, but WoW started it, and that's when there was like another explosion of a genre like just taking over. So there's always been a history of that. This is another discussion. We're kind of getting off topic here, but
Yeah, I was about to say we're getting in the weeds a little bit here,
it's okay. That's where I go
but
off anyway.
yeah, but so any final thoughts on this topic? I mean, I feel like I've sort of said most of the things I want to say as far as
I can talk
my
a lot longer about it, but it sucks that like you're Mr. I don't have memories and nostalgia.
well, no, I mean if you have other things you want to talk about,
No,
maybe
it's
that'll
got to be
spark more
discussion.
of a
A discussion.
yeah. Well, I mean, but maybe it'll spark maybe it'll spark some kind of interest in me as far as like I said. I mean, I can definitely draw parallels to the things that I played when I was younger, but I don't overall the things I played back then don't necessarily influence what I play today. Other than just there's certain things, like I said, like a racing game is a racing game. There's not much else. So you either like it or you don't. You know what I mean? It's not
Mhm.
like a JRPG is different back then than it is now, even though fundamentally it's kind of the same, but it doesn't have that same because, uh, we video games were restricted by the technology that they were on. So video games get more insane year over year with graphics and technology and all this stuff. So in a way, it's almost like, we enjoyed the things we enjoyed because that's the best that you could achieve at the time. That's the only thing you could do. That's the most you could push on one of those older consoles or a computer or whatever. So in a way, games are completely different now because they can be, even though there's still like a lot of smaller games. So a interesting parallel to draw would be like, so do you play a lot of, because there's a lot of retro and indie games that still invoke the same spirit of those old, like, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis
Yeah.
games. So do you still play those a lot, or?
I'll play them if they look interesting. I don't go out of my way to play them because even though they're in the same vein and it's playing on nostalgia there, it's not as fleshed out. The games aren't as good. Like I can go back and
Yeah.
I can play Final Fantasy VI, which is a great Final Fantasy game, but you can pick up I can't think of a recent retro game that I played that's an RPG, but you could pick those up and it's just not the same. It's not the same because it's those people making it is like it's like probably like two or three people. It's not like a full team. It doesn't have the music. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have that like the polish. So it's not the same.
I didn't, because I don't have a fondness for the NES era and those type of games, but I still enjoy some of these smaller games. Like I remember a Shadow Complex. That's what I was trying to think of.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's an old style game, and I actually really enjoyed that. But a lot of times for me, it's like I have to, like, I'm not initially interested in stuff. It's just like, well, there's, especially on the 360 generation when everything had demos, then I might be more inclined to try something, and then I'll be like, oh, this is kind of fun. I'm actually enjoying this. And so I'll play games that way. Like I only really started dicking around with Below because it was free on Game Pass. Like I wouldn't look at that game and be like, oh, I want to play that. Like in the same way I would see like a Red Dead and know that I'm going to play that and get excited for it. So I do enjoy some of those more smaller retro games, but a lot of times I have to be kind of pushed into playing them. And then once I'm in the thick of it, I'm like, oh, this is fun. I'm enjoying it. But I don't have. There's a lot of people that grew up, in our age range, that grew up with the consoles we grew up with, and they see these little smaller indie games and they like playing that because it reminds them of the games they used to play on those consoles. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah. Okay, so I actually thought of a couple of things here. So you brought up like the Metroidvania style game. So you have Metroid and you have Castlevania and you have those, you go room to room, you collect items, you go back, you open up other doors you couldn't open before. Like those games, I love those games too. So I love Guacamelee. I know you had a hard time with that with that one. I actually picked up Guacamelee 2 because it was just on
Well,
sale
I
recently.
got to a point and I couldn't figure out how to get past it. I played like most of the way through that game, and then I got to a part where I just didn't understand what I was supposed to do.
It does get hard.
Fucking
It does get
yeah,
hard. The platforming does get pretty difficult. And you can look at that game and you can compare it to Metroid or Super Metroid or something, and you could say, okay, like Guacamelee is way more difficult because it's just there's more going on in it. But to kind of put into compare or bring this into comparison, because you said, would you play a game now that just came out that's a retro game in the vein of something else? So you have Metroid and you have Castlevania, and then they just brought out sorry, they didn't just bring it out, but they have on Gold a game called Curse of the Blood Moon, which is basically Castlevania, and it plays exactly the same. It's stiff. You pick up weapons just like it. And it just plays very much the same. And I tried playing through it, and even though it's like the same thing, it's just I don't know. I just couldn't do it. Like I might be able to do it
yeah.
for an RPG, but I just couldn't play this because it was just the mechanics of it. It's too old. I've been there. I've done that. I'd rather go back and play Metroid or Castlevania, because those are like the classics. Like you play that for the nostalgia. I don't really want to play a game that is almost the same thing. It just has a different story. Two people made it, and like the sprites are different. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
maybe
Well,
for
see,
some
like I
people it's
didn't.
fine, but
Yeah. But so the interesting a couple of things I just thought of too is that like so I enjoy some of those types of games, the newer updated versions of them, whatever they're called or whoever they're made by, because I didn't really play a ton of that back in the day. So
mm,
it's almost like I have this newfound appreciation for some of the games I might have overlooked or didn't really connect with when I was younger. But the other aspect of some of these retro games, a lot of people like those style of games. Like a lot of people have this reverence for old games of those uh, the NES and SNES and stuff like that because they were more difficult, they were harder.
mm,
I never really connected with that. Like that's kind of a thing where that's a lot of the reason why I didn't play a ton of games then because they were like super hard, and a lot of people like look for that. You know what I mean? Like I think that's why Dark Souls kind of blew up a few years ago
mm.
and stuff like that. People enjoy that sort of they have a nostalgia for that difficulty, those brutally difficult games from back then, and so some people have a nostalgia and a longing for that. I don't really like that kind of stuff myself. I don't
No,
like
neither do
anything
I.
super hard. So that's another sort of parallel you could draw. Some people could probably draw between what they play now and what they played when they were younger, because games were really hard and super brutal.
I do like the sense of accomplishment. Like I will play games on harder difficulties and stuff like that. But comparing like playing something on the hardest difficulty now to just playing like the normal mode of like Mega Man or something back in the 90s, like it's just the mechanics of the game make it difficult. The controls make it difficult. The fact that you can't like move while you're in the air makes it difficult. The fact that if you don't jump at the very cusp of a ledge, because you'll fall to your doom because you couldn't jump far enough. Like that is those types of things that were just like, man, this is stupid. This is just like the game's mechanics. But like, I get the Dark Souls thing. I don't like that because I don't want to be punished that bad. I do like the challenge, but I don't want to be like ball gagged and whipped to play a game. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like I'm not into
yeah.
like masochistic
I'm definitely not.
gameplay.
I'm definitely not like that. Especially the older I get, the less time I have. I'm like, I just want to blow through a game.
So the other thought that I had was you have all these retro games coming out, and I have a perfect example because I was going through the Game Pass the other day on Xbox, and there's a game called Westerado. And I was like, let's go see what this game is. So it's a retro like cowboy game, and it's like a who done it. You have to find out who murdered your family basically. So I just went and read the reviews. So it has some good reviews, but all the bad reviews are people complaining that the graphics suck. So it's like I think it's people, or I think it's kids basically who didn't grow up with this stuff, and they look at it and are like, what is this shit? You know what I mean? Like why is this like 8-bit crap on the store? Like I want Call of Duty graphics because that's all they've ever played. So these kids don't have an appreciation for the retro stuff, and I can understand.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's actually super interesting because yeah, I mean, we grew up in a different time. Like we had arcades and we had all this different stuff. We have a different view into video games, like a different appreciation for some things. And the people that grew up playing games are now making games. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it's definitely a thing where you're gonna have you're gonna have kids growing up. Their first game is fucking Fortnite, man. How sad is that? Like they're gonna have a
They're
nostalgia
gonna be
for
broke.
fucking Fortnite.
They're gonna be broke because they got all the goddamn costumes and shit.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, that's another interesting sort of avenue to explore. Is it like
The age
because
gap.
we grew up with we literally grew up with games, like they came to be a thing when we were young, and so we've grown up with them. So we have a different perspective and we have a different history that some of these younger people, and that's something that's never existed before. You know what I'm saying? Like there hasn't, my great grandfather's not going to it doesn't know what he doesn't even know what video games are. You know what I'm saying? So we're like the first generation of people that grew up with this stuff as an art form, and so we just have a different viewpoint on a lot of this stuff, and it's going to be interesting in the future generations, like actually having like a grandfather or a dad or something that plays games and having children and seeing their perspective on games and what they're drawn to, and what they're going to have a nostalgia for, and what connects with them might be completely different. Like games might be, I mean, games are always going to grow and change and evolve. But it's going to be interesting to see like actually how much like these younger generations growing up and their connection to games, and what what sticks with them and what they have a fondness for.
Mm-hmm. Well, so something kind of along those lines that you said about like when we get older and we're going to be like seniors still playing games and stuff, if we can, like if our hands can still take it. I went with my wife to her grandma's retirement home, and they had like a movie room, and they're playing all these like silver screen, black and white type of movies and stuff. And it's all set up for them. And then you walk down the hall and someone's doing a puzzle, and you go over here and this person's got like a mad bird fetish, and they got like every bird feeder possible, like outside their window, and that's their thing. And I said to my wife when we were at the theater thing with the silver screen stuff, I was like, when I'm old, if I make it to this age, like we're going to have a room here with like 40 TVs and all these Nintendo 64s set up, and we're just gonna be playing Mario Kart and GoldenEye all fucking day. You know what I mean? Like, like that's gonna be us. We're not gonna be doing puzzles. We're not gonna be playing shuffleboard. Like retirement homes are gonna have to change and evolve, and maybe people are gonna have huge Fortnite tournaments. Maybe when they're older, they're just gonna parachute out of a plane into a field, and then that's how you actually kill yourself. You get shot, and that's the end of your life for real.
This actually sounds really awesome to just know when I get old and go into a retirement home, it's going to be fucking LAN parties. They're going to be playing Halo. Like, it's going to be like old school. We're going to have a bunch of fucking original Xboxes set up, all linked, and then we're just going to be playing Halo. There's a bunch of old dudes sitting around playing Halo.
But you know what, though? Multiplayer and the connectivity and stuff, we're still going to have problems with that in 30, 40 years. We can't get shit to work day one. We can't get shit to work in our own house. Every time I've had a LAN party in the last 20 years, it takes like 2 hours to get everyone on the damn network. Shit's always going true. Down. So by the time we get to the senior age or whatever, like this shit probably won't even work.
That's why you got to get the OG Xbox, dude, and just hook it up. Just look it up old school LAN style. Fuck the networks.
We won't even be able to find Ethernet cables and stuff. Who knows?
Right. Anyway, so does that do it for today?
Yeah. So if you want to sign
off.
All
right. Well, that's going to be our show for this week. We're going to be trying to do these weekly. We're going to try to stay regular. Life happens. Things happen. But so this is the Bastards of Gaming podcast show. If you want, send in your emails and we'll read them next time. We already have a huge fan base out there. A lot of people have been asking us for years, why don't you guys do a gaming podcast? Why aren't you guys at the forefront of gaming right now? Why aren't you the voice of gaming? And we're like, we eventually were just like, why aren't we? Why aren't we the voice of video games?
I think people are ready. People are ready for us now.
Yeah, people are ready for us now. I think the world can handle us. I think the world is ready for definitive voices in games to tell you what you need to know, what you should care about, and how you should feel about games. So we'll catch you guys next week.
Peace.
Peace.